On live television, Donald Trump launched into one of his most aggressive rants yet, trying to discredit Representative Jasmine Crockett by painting her as corrupt and even hinting that she should face jail time. But what he didn't expect was Crockett's razor-sharp comeback that turned the tables instantly. Instead of backing down, she looked him dead in the eye and reminded the audience of his own ongoing legal troubles, stacking indictment after indictment, and drawing roaring applause when she pointed out the hypocrisy of a man who has been impeached twice, indicted 4 times, and dragged through countless lawsuits trying to lecture anyone else about law and order. And as she spoke, the smirk on Trump's face disappeared, replaced by visible frustration as Crockett delivered a knockout line that no one under as many investigations as him has the credibility to lecture Congress, leaving the entire room stunned and proving once again why she's one of the fiercest voices holding him accountable. The tension in the room only grew after Jasmine Crockett's fiery clapback, as Trump tried to recover by throwing more accusations her way, but the damage was already done because every word Crockett spoke kept echoing in the minds of those watching as she reminded the nation how Trump's so-called crusade against corruption was nothing more than a smokescreen to distract from his own mounting scandals, from classified documents at Mar-a-Lago to hush money payments that he still pretends never happened, and as she laid out the timeline of his failures with calm precision, Trump's interruptions only made him look smaller, weaker, and more desperate, while Crockett's confidence grew with every sentence, drawing cheers from the crowd and even forcing some Republicans on the panel to shift uncomfortably in their seats, and by the time she finished, it was clear that what Trump had intended as a takedown had backfired spectacularly, cementing Crockett's reputation as the one voice unafraid to speak the truth to his face and making Trump instantly regret ever trying to drag her name into his political theater. By the time the exchange reached its peak, the air was electric with a mix of shock and excitement, and Trump's attempts to regain control had collapsed into scattered jabs that sounded more like personal grievances than political arguments, while Jasmine Crockett seized the moment with undeniable authority, telling the crowd that no amount of intimidation or name-calling could erase the facts of Trump's record, and she painted the picture clearly of how he tried to overturn an election, how he incited chaos at the Capitol, and how every time accountability closed in, he lashed out at his opponents as if that would wash away his own sins, and the audience erupted when she declared that America doesn't need a man who fears the truth but leaders who fight for it, leaving Trump visibly rattled and struggling to interrupt as her words cut through louder than his shouts. And in that instant it became clear that what was meant to be his show of dominance had instead turned into a historic moment where Crockett not only defended herself but also dismantled the myth of Trump's invincibility in front of millions. As the cameras kept rolling, Trump's frustration boiled over into rambling denials and half-baked excuses, but Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch for a second. Instead she leaned in and told him directly that real strength isn't about bullying or shouting louder than everyone else, it's about facing the truth and owning your mistakes, and then she hit him with the ultimate reminder that while he spends his days fighting court cases and pointing fingers, she and her colleagues are actually writing laws and fighting for the American people, a line that drew thunderous applause and left Trump blinking in silence, his trademark bravado slipping away on live television, and the image of Crockett standing tall while he fumbled for words became the defining snapshot of the night, a moment replayed endlessly across social media as proof that the tables had turned, and by the end, it wasn't Trump putting Jasmine Crockett on trial but Crockett who had exposed him in front of the world, leaving him with nothing but the sting of regret and the echo of her words ringing louder than any insult he tried to hurl. Even after the cameras stopped rolling, the impact of Jasmine Crockett's clash with Trump carried far beyond the room, with clips flooding social media, commentators replaying her sharpest lines, and millions of viewers praising her for saying what so many had been waiting to hear, while Trump's camp scrambled to spin the narrative but failed to cover up the embarrassment that he had walked straight into, because Crockett had not only defended herself but also reframed the entire conversation, reminding Americans that Trump's legacy is not about strength or leadership but about chaos, division, and endless scandals, and her words became a rallying cry as people shared them with captions about courage and accountability, turning what Trump thought would be an ambush into a humiliating defeat that will follow him into every courtroom and every campaign stop. And what stood out most was that Crockett never once stooped to his level. She didn't need insults or theatrics. Just the weight of truth delivered with precision, and that truth landed like a hammer, leaving Trump visibly diminished, his supporters quieter than usual, and the rest of the country watching a new political star carve her name into history by showing that not even the loudest man in the room can drown out honesty and conviction. As the dust settled in the days that followed, the exchange between Trump and Jasmine Crockett refused to fade from headlines, dominating talk shows, news cycles, and viral feeds, and while Trump tried desperately to shift attention back to his usual talking points, the clip of Crockett dismantling him replayed again and again, making it impossible for him to escape the humiliation, because every replay showed the same undeniable reality of his words crumbling under the weight of her calm but unrelenting truth. And pundits across the spectrum admitted that this was more than just a viral moment, it was a turning point that revealed how unprepared Trump was to face strong, fearless opposition from a new generation of leaders, while Crockett's profile skyrocketed, with supporters flooding her offices with calls of gratitude and messages of encouragement, and what had begun as Trump's attempt to silence her had instead turned into the moment that elevated her voice louder than ever, leaving him cornered not in a courtroom this time, but in the court of public opinion, where the verdict was already clear. Jasmine Crockett had made him regret every word, every accusation, and every attempt to use her name as a shield against his own spiraling downfall. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects of Jasmine Crockett's fiery showdown with Trump only grew stronger, as her words became a symbol of resistance and accountability that resonated far beyond Washington, with students quoting her in classrooms, activists replaying her speech at rallies, and even international outlets praising her courage to confront a former president so directly, while Trump, usually quick to dominate headlines, found himself on the defensive, forced to explain away yet another moment where his bluster failed him, and the more he tried to discredit Crockett, the more he inadvertently amplified her, giving her an even larger platform to highlight his failures. And this dynamic marked a rare shift in the political landscape, because instead of Trump setting the tone, it was Crockett's sharp rebuke that framed the national conversation, making clear that the old intimidation tactics no longer worked, and as she doubled down in interviews, confidently reminding the public that no one is above the law, her influence continued to expand, proving that what began as a tense exchange on live television had evolved into a defining battle of character, one that not only left Trump weakened but also reshaped the perception of power itself, showing that integrity and fearlessness could outshine even the loudest voice in American politics. By the time the storm reached its peak, it was obvious that Jasmine Crockett had not just won a moment but had shifted the balance of the entire debate, because every attempt Trump made to claw back control only deepened the impression that he had been exposed, and the public could see it too as polls showed a surge in Crockett's favorability and a decline in Trump's standing with independent voters, proving that the confrontation had real political consequences, and commentators noted that this clash would be remembered not simply as another heated exchange but as the night a rising leader cemented her reputation on the national stage. While Trump's anger grew more visible in every subsequent appearance, his speeches peppered with bitter references to Crockett as if saying her name might erase the sting of what had happened, yet each mention only reminded people of his humiliation, and in contrast, Crockett kept moving forward, focusing on her work, letting the power of truth and composure speak louder than insults. And in that contrast lay the final blow where Trump's legacy looked more desperate and chaotic than ever. Crockett's star shone brighter, embodying the kind of leadership that could inspire millions, leaving Trump trapped in the shadow of regret while she walked away with a victory that history would not forget.